All right, so Jared from my first period was curious as to why we use 2a in our problems that we're doing, where that 2a comes from. And I don't like to leave people hanging. If people are inquisitive and want to know why stuff is true, I do try to show them. I just didn't think class time was the right time because I didn't want to confuse people who were not really curious where that 2a came from. So this is where that 2a comes from, again, if you're curious. So we start off with one quadratic. So all I'm going to do is, so there's my an squared plus bn plus c, but they said, you know what, let's just use n for 1. So everywhere I see an n, I put a 1. So a1 squared plus b1 plus c. Then they do it again. So now let's use 2 for n. So a2 squared plus b2 plus c, and they do it again. Now they use n is equal to 3. That's all that sub means. They're saying sub n for 3, sub n for 2, and sub n for 1. So now I put in 3 for n. So I have a3 squared plus b3 plus c, and they did it one more time. So now let's do a4 squared plus b4 plus c. So now let's find our differences. So first they just list them. So they just simplified it for us, which is why I use this instead of making my own. So they just took the t1, and so now they just simplified it. So a1 squared plus b1 plus c, well, that's just a plus b plus c. So my t1 is just a plus b plus c. And so the t2, they went back here, they simplified it. So 2 squared is 4, so it's 4a plus 2b plus c, and that's where the t2 comes from. So tt is just 4a plus 2b plus c. Did it again for t3, and they did it again for t4. So again, all they did was simplify. They went back up into these 4, and they actually simplified. They did the squaring, and again, b4 is just 4 times b, and so on. Okay, then they did their first differences. So again, so here's t1 simplified. Here's t2 simplified, here's t3 simplified, and here is t4 simplified. So then they did their differences. Okay, so look, let's just look at our a's. From t1, a is 1, there's 1a. In t2, I have 4 a's. So what happened to my a's? My a's went up by 3, so I added 3 a's from t1 to t2. Okay, how many a's did I add from t2 to t3? I added 5 a's. And then from T3 to T4, I added 7 A's. So I added 3 A's, then I added 5 A's, and then I added 7 A's. How about the B's? Here I have 1 B, now I have 2 B's, now I have 3 B's, and then I had 4 B's. So each time we added a B. 1 B, added 1 B, 1 B, 1 B. I added a B each step of the way. And my C's didn't change. There was no difference in my C's. I had 1 C, 1C, 1C, and 1C. So each step of the way, from T1 to T2, my difference was 3A plus B. From T2 to T3, it was 5A plus B. And from T3 to T4, my difference was 7A plus B. So now, again, this is my first difference. So now if I find the difference between these three, what happens to my A's? I had 3A, now I have 5A, and now I have 7A. So I went up 2A from here to here, and I went up 2A from there to there. And what happened to my B's? My B's didn't change. So my second difference is just 2A. And that'll always be the case when I'm doing quadratics. Now, so instead of doing all this, we just know that if I can find my second difference must be equal to 2A. And that's how we get the A. Good question, Jared.